Howdy. Turns out that there's only 2 hours left until this assignment is due, and all the rooms in the library are booked, so this is what we're going with. I've shown myself. My room is messy, and you don't need to see that. You know what you do need to see? This absolute masterpiece of a survey project. Let's go on a magical adventure together. Let's find out the most important question there is in the world. How trashed is Galveston? By which I mean, what's the density of the litter here? What's its primary composition? And what environmental effects does it have on our beautiful, beautiful island? And is the seawall the trashiest place on the island? Because we've all seen Jimmy's on the pier. We know the sort that goes there. Jokes aside, it would make sense to me for the seawall to be the trashiest place on the island because the tides bring a gift of trash twice a day. And while the city of Galveston does do its best to maintain the beaches, it can't get everything. It's just not economically viable. So to see how trashed it could be, we referenced another location, which was the municipal cemetery, which, while less trafficked, also is, a place that exists, so can be trashed. So the areas surveyed are relatively close to each other on the island of Galveston. As you can kind of see here, there we go. They were surveyed in the morning with 2 days between them, and then once more in the afternoon. The conditions were about the same both days, no major changes. Seawall Beach was an astonishing over 13,000 meters squared surveyed, and we went from beach groin to beach groin, just seeing what kind of litter we could find. At the municipal cemetery, it was almost 25,000 meters squared, way more flat, and it was significantly easier to observe. Litter composition of both sites was primarily carbon-based. The cemetery had two items of metal and none of silicon-based, which was curious. Both of those items were alcoholic beverage cans. And at the seawall, there was a more generous distribution of litter, mostly carbon-based plastics, along with a broken knife and some sort of putty scraping tool, and a few broken glass bottles. Seawall had a greater overall instances of trash, however, at nearly 50 as compared to less than 20 at the cemetery. So I think it's safe to say that Seawall is more trashed, considering how much larger the area of the cemetery is. Here we can see the use of litter in comparison to where it was. Beverages in every location was the primary piece of litter, whether it be soda pop lids or Whataburger, styrofoam cups, broken glass bottles, plastic bottles, etc. Beverages is the number one thing that's just thrown away with little regard, it would seem. Surprisingly few plastic bags. Thankfully, there's only one in the entire study, if you can call it that, which I will, because I control the narrative. It's one. The seawall is the trashiest place, guys. High density of litter in comparison to the cemetery, which the city of Galveston wants to maintain the prettiness of both of them. So, aligns with what we were expecting. Now, as to how it affects our environment, and how much of my computer I can get on my screen at once, most of the items that we found were able to break down, which kind of makes sense. If it could get cleaned up, it did. And what washed ashore or was left on the cemetery just kind of is there until it gets cleaned again. So what was interesting about the cigarette butts is while the majority of the components are biodegradable, a study from Kermis and Mojaharani from 2020 actually shows that the residual toxins from smoking cigarettes can actually remain on the fiberglass and paper, and from there leach into the environment when exposed to moisture. A similar study from Owens 1991 showed that the paper pulp for manufacture of the cigarette wrapper and also paper bags does break down. However, it's broken down and doesn't release toxins into the environment, but are rather consumed by bacteria and insects. So that's kind of neat. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I didn't. But you know what? We got through it.